It was the early hours of November 13th, 2022 in Moscow, Idaho. 4 University of Idaho students lay dead in their off-campus home. No screams had echoed through the night, just silence, tears, and unspeakable violence. The neighbors could not imagine. The campus did not expect. The police had no suspect. By December 30th, a name was in hand: Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student in criminology, living just across the border. The man who studied criminal behavior would soon be accused of living the darkest case his own studies might have warned about. He'd be linked through DNA, surveillance, cell phone pings, and ultimately, he would plead guilty to avoid the death penalty. 4 life sentences without parole, a community shattered, and a motive still unknown. Bryan Kohberger was born November 21st, 1994, in Pennsylvania. By 2022, he was 30 years old, pursuing a doctorate in criminal justice at Washington State University in Pullman, just under 10 miles from Moscow, Idaho. Neighbors called him quiet. Classmates described him as intelligence wrapped in reserve. He'd earned a bachelor's in psychology, then a master's. He taught as a TA. He read about crime. He studied cases. In one chilling twist, he seemed almost preparing for this. Although no one could believe the headlines when they came, Kohberger had no known connection to the victims. Their names: Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves. Students, friends, roommates in a house rented off campus on King Road. A gathering of young lives, ambitions, late nights, study sessions. A Friday night so ordinary: food trucks, campus parties, texts with loved ones, laughter. 4 young people sleep in the house. 4 never wake up. That house on King Road lay still. Elliot in rooms above, friends asleep. At least 2 of the victims had been out earlier that night. Mogan and Goncalves had visited a local bar, returned to the house. Chapin, Kernodle, in their own rooms. Upstairs, the rooms quiet. Among them, a sliding glass kitchen door stood open just a crack, perhaps used as entry. Around 4:20 a.m., camera footage in the neighborhood captured a white or light-colored sedan, later attributed to Kohberger's car, cruising, passing near the victim's house several times. The same camera would show the car speeding away a few minutes after 4:20. The sound of a dog barking, a loud thud, whimpering. The surviving roommate, Dylan Mortensen, described hearing a masked man walk past her door, low growls, something off-putting. She froze. The unknown intruder moved past without speaking as she stood in the threshold. She did not immediately call police. She locked herself in. Fear, disbelief, shock. She thought maybe it was a prank, someone lost, but in her heart, she felt dread. By morning, the house was quiet in one way, but loud with truth. Around 12 p.m., Mortensen and the other surviving roommate, Bethany Funka, found no movement. They called friends. They had not heard from their housemates all morning. A friend visited. The bodies were found. 4 students dead, stabbed multiple times, many wounds. Some victims were found in their beds. Others laid on the floor. No restraints. No signs of sexual assault by initial coroner reports, just brutality. Police cordoned off the house. Forensic teams swarmed. Rooms photographed. Blood spatter analyzed. The knives were missing. The weapon only partially evident by evidence. A tan leather knife sheath left behind on a bed. In that sheath, DNA matching traces to Kohberger. It would become what prosecutors called the smoking gun. In the weeks that followed, investigators pieced together a labyrinth of digital, physical, and circumstantial evidence. DNA evidence, the sheath of the knife found in the victim's home. A touch DNA sample was taken, compared, traced back to Kohberger. Also, prosecutors obtained DNA from trash at his parents' house in Pennsylvania that matched the sample on the sheath. Cell phone data. Kohberger's phone pinged in the vicinity of the victim's home multiple times in the months prior. On the morning after the murders, his phone was back in that neighborhood by about 9 a.m., 5 hours after the killings, despite earlier being off network during the critical window. Vehicle surveillance. His car, a white sedan, was captured on video around the neighborhood. A vehicle matching his, seen several times before the crime. Speeding away after 4:20 a.m., Kohberger had purchased a knife complaint with a sheath much like the one found at the scene. Prosecutors alleged he ordered knife and sheath months earlier. On December 30th, 2022, Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. From there, he would be extradited to Idaho. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary for breaking into the home where the killings took place. Preliminary court filings, hearings, and grand jury indictments moved slowly. Prosecution initially sought the death penalty due to aggravating factors: multiple victims killed while asleep, execution-style nature. Defense fought motions, discovery, objectives, establish motive, examine mental health, challenge admissibility of various evidence branches. It was not one single moment that cracked the case, but many tiny fractures, thousands of public tips, surveillance video from home security cameras, neighbors' early reports of a stranger in a mask, phone logs, a white sedan. Digital breadcrumbs matched physical ones. Investigators reconstructed movements minute by minute. Trace DNA on the sheath became central. Genetic genealogy raised ethical questions in this case. Investigators used matchups not only in law enforcement databases, but genealogical data to identify relatives who then led them to Kohberger. There was controversy over privacy, over whether this kind of search was overreach. But in Idaho, it would become vital. Cell phone tower data also played a role. Multiple pings in the area of the house in the hours leading up to the murders. Phone being off in certain windows. Timing showing presence. Surveillance video of car entering, leaving the crime scene. Affidavits described slipping in via kitchen sliding door. No signs of forced entry elsewhere. Inside the home, forensic teams found victims in various stages, in beds, in corners of rooms. Some had defensive wounds, arms, hands, legs raised trying to push off attacks. There were many stab wounds. One victim had over 50 stab wounds, no apparent sexual assault, no restraint marks. One victim's throat had been slashed, another found face down in the bed. Kitchen sliding glass door often believed to be entry point, items disturbed. Blood spatter inconsistent with simple burglary or intrusion. Rooms most affected: third-floor bedrooms, where Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves were. Second floor, where Xana Kernodle slept, pathways between bedrooms and kitchen. Chaotic scenes of struggle, some furniture toppled, sheets stained. Evidence of personal items missing from victims. Several forensic reports identify materials of clothing, bedding, human biological evidence. Through trial documents, investigators confirmed that Kohberger had no prior relationship with the victims. No known social media links, no known interactions. Victims and Kohberger were strangers. Why this house? Why these 4? What drove the escalation? During sentencing, prosecutors stressed that motive remained unknown. Kohberger, when offered a moment, declined to explain. He would not reveal motive. Victims' families demanded answers. The defense offered insights, reports of mental health, claims of autism spectrum disorder, tinnitus, claims that some behavior was odd, but courts generally noted he was highly functioning. The judge refused to let diagnosis be introduced unless Kohberger took the stand. He did not. On July 2nd, 2025, Kohberger entered a plea deal. He pled guilty to all counts. 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of felony burglary. In doing so, he avoided the death penalty. In exchange, he waived many rights, including appeal. The deal marked a turning point: admission, accountability, but still unanswered why. On July 23, 2025, in Boise, Judge Stephen Hippler pronounced sentence 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole, to run consecutively, 1 for each murder count, plus 10 additional years for burglary. Also, monetary fines and restitution to the victims' families, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Victims' families: Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin. Each had voices in court, tearful, angry. Some demanded motive, some condemned him. One described Kaylee as someone special. Another said that Zana never meant harm, just kindness. Families and surviving roommates pressed for meaning, for reason. Many left with no closure on motive. The house where the murders took place was donated to the university. It was demolished by year's end. Memorial gardens planted, scholarships created, posthumous degrees awarded. The community sought healing, but scars linger. Students, families, faculty, not just in Idaho, but across the country watching the case, remain haunted. Legal and ethical debates sparked. Use of genetic genealogy, privacy concerns, pleas bargaining away death penalty, transparency in evidence release. How suspects' rights and victims' rights intersect. The case revived discussion about student safety, off-campus housing security, anonymous tips, trail of small evidence that matters. Above all, the question of motive remains unanswered. Kohberger declined to explain. The why is still missing. When prosecutors described the crime as willful, unlawful, with premeditation and malice afterthought, they used legal terms. But for families and community, those words don't replace a reason, a why, a face to the horror. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Bryan Kohberger on Idaho college murders. If this story gripped you, unsettled you, or left you wanting better justice, please like this video, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss cases that demand attention.